to begin. Let me share the screen. We're learning about Kaddish. Yesterday I shared some stories, maybe somewhat spooky ones, or one story in particular. But the story brought out how even a person that was really known to not be the nicest of people, he was suffering. And when Akiva found his child and he taught him, and he tried teaching his child at first, and the child wasn't getting it. He wasn't learning. He wasn't receptive. And Rabbi Akiva fasted for 40 days to beseech Hashem's mercy to open up the mind and heart of this child. And so it was. The child's mind and heart was opened up, and the child learned how to read, and he learned to say Kaddish. And finally, his father's neshama was able to go into heaven. So if we see, even in this extreme case of somebody who was very sinful, the power of Kaddish and the extent to which Rabbi Akiva went in order to get his child to say Kaddish, we can understand for us what a powerful impact the Kaddish has for when a mourner says Kaddish on behalf of somebody that has passed away. We also looked at the Kaddish inside yesterday, and we saw that it's actually speaking about making Hashem's name great in this world, and it speaks about how that will be so when Mashiach comes. So the Kaddish is not a prayer for mourners. It's a prayer rather that speaks about our job in this world to make this world a godly place. However, when a mourner says this prayer, that it has a powerful impact on the neshama of the person that has passed away. So that was what we spoke about yesterday. Today we'll look at the laws inside. So in chapter 26, most of the chapter deals with the order of precedence. If you see over here on the screen, halachas 2 to almost the whole chapter, basically 2 to 17, deals with the order of precedence. In those days, one person would say Kaddish, and then the question would be who gets the privilege of saying Kaddish, and there was a whole order of priority. Today we generally, the custom is that multiple people are able to say Kaddish at the same time. Although these halachas would still be relevant, as we'll see, as far as who gets to lead the prayers. Okay, let's take a look at a few relevant halachas that relate to Kaddish. This shir is more focused on halacha, on how one goes about the things that one goes about. As far as deeper meanings, I try to give little sparks or just a few concepts to spice it up, but there is a lot more to be said about Kaddish that would be beyond the scope of this particular class. So many stories are told in the Midrashim indicating that because the son said Kaddish for his father or mother, they were saved from heavenly judgment. It is therefore customary for a mourner to say Kaddish, and there are a few other customs as well. For the mourner to be called up for maftir, obviously if the mourner is able to say maftir, able to do the Haftorah. In fact, sometimes even if he's unable to say the Haftorah, there could still be a concept of him being called up and having somebody else read the Haftorah on his behalf. So we're familiar with the bar mitzvah boy doing his maftir, but there's actually a special merit to a mourner getting called up for maftir that also helps the neshama of the person that's passed away. And to be chazan before the congregation. And we'll see much later in section 14 how that's actually first choice. First choice, even greater than saying Kaddish, is being able to lead the prayers. And I'm looking at who's joined us today, but I don't see him here. But one of the regular shir attendants started coming to shul, wasn't regular at all, but over the course of his year that he was saying Kaddish, he actually learned how to lead the prayers and learned the evening prayers, and that was quite a special thing. So being able to leave the davening, I guess one would start with the night prayer, with evening prayers where there's no repetition of the Amidah, maybe from there to Mincha and from there to Shachris, is powerful. Especially, this is an interesting one. There's an added meaning to a mourner that says Kaddish, that leads the services after Shabbos. Why? Because on Shabbos, all the Shabbos are relieved from Gehenna. Should we talk about Gehenna for a moment, about hell? Okay. Just by talking about it, hopefully it'll be considered as if that's as much as what we need to know about it. Apparently, there's a class coming up. I don't know. I think it was just advertised, a Zoom event where we're gonna have a international speaker speaking about life beyond this world. What happens to the soul after it moves on from this world? So stay tuned. That'll probably be on a Tuesday night, but I'm sure details will follow. And the neshama comes down into this world, each neshama with a particular mission. But the general mission, the general purpose of the neshama is to make this world a better place, a more godly place, a place where the world is filled with goodness. With every mitzvah that we do, we achieve that goal. And when we sin, obviously present company excluded, then sometimes that has a negative effect on the neshama. I mean, not sometimes. Anytime a person sins, it causes a negative like stain on the neshama, like filth. Now, every neshama ends up going up to heaven. However, in order for the neshama to be able to experience and appreciate the light of Hashem, which is manifest in heaven, it first wants to remove from itself any filth. Just like you're about to see the king and you wouldn't want to have dirty clothing on, or you're about to attend a wedding, and if you've got if you just had to change your tire and your hands are full of grease, you don't want to appear that way in front of the king or at a wedding. You want to clean yourself. And in cleaning yourself, it can sometimes be painful. It could be laborious. So the neshama too wants to come to heaven clean and beautiful without any residue of any spiritual filth, of any sin. And that is the role of Gehenna. What Gehenna is a purification stage where the neshama is able to clean away any dirt that it may have accumulated. And that's a very painful experience. It's for a higher purpose, ultimately, so it could become clean. But just because it's for a greater purpose, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. Just like if sometimes even cleaning a little child, the child may scream in frustration, and that's real. You can't dismiss it. One needs to acknowledge. But nonetheless, it's for the child's good. But again, even though it's for the child's good, it still hurts. And so we want to alleviate that pain as much as possible. Now, it's just a matter of time till the neshama finishes its stop in Gehenna, in hell, and is able straight to go to heaven. So that's really what hell is about. Obviously, it's used in a more casual context, sometimes in conversation. But when we talk about Gehenna or purgatory, then that is what we are referring to. Now, even the neshamas that are still stationed in Gehenna, when it comes to Shabbos, they all have a day off. They have a day of rest. And they're able to, again, just enjoy Hashem's presence without the pains of that cleansing process. Once Shabbos is over, if the neshama will need to go back to where it was in that cleansing, painful experience. And so therefore, for the souls of the neshama of a person that has passed away, the hardest time of the week is the end of Shabbos, because he sees where he's going back to until he's able to go to heaven. And so therefore, there's added reason to lead the services for the child of the person that passed away, for that child to lead the services at the end of Shabbos, because when the child of that neshama leads the davening, that gives the neshama added strength and assistance that will alleviate any of the pain and to give it the strength to withstand whatever painful experience it needs to go through in order to ultimately reach heaven. Okay. He says that's a Motzei Shabbos at the end of Shabbos, and also every evening, because in the evening time, judgment is harsher. And so since it's a time where judgment is harsher in the evening, there's added value in the child of that neshama leading the davening. Okay. Now, as far as Kaddish is concerned, he says there are many divergent rules in accordance with various local customs. And from the next halacha, number 2, all the way up until halacha 16, he deals with who gets priority. If only one person can say Kaddish, who comes first? So somebody who's in the week of Shiva would have more priority to somebody who's in Shloshim, who would have more priority to someone who's in his 11 months. Somebody who has Yortzeit would have added priority. And that's really what he goes through. I'm not going to go through all of it inside because I think if I just read the text, you're not quite going to get it. I will see if I can prepare somewhat of a more easier to follow chart if you want to have a little bit of an idea. Yeah. So now let's skip to halacha 14. And again, you are welcome to read this in your own time if you would like. Okay. So a mourner who is capable and worthy to act as chazan should do so. Since this is a greater benefit than the mourner saying Kaddish, which was originally instituted only for minors. So actually the concept of a mourner saying Kaddish was originally instituted for a child that wasn't eligible to lead the services, but still we wanted to give the child an opportunity to help the neshama of his parent in some way. So for that child that is under bar mitzvah, Kaddish was instituted that he could lead a prayer that will give strength to his parents, like we heard about in the story yesterday. So Kaddish was originally instituted for somebody who was not eligible to lead the services. So from here we understand that being able to lead the davening is preferable. If a mourner is unable to lead the davening, the entire service, then he should try to begin to at least do part of the service, like from Ashrei Yavalatziyah, meaning after the repetition of the Amidah and the Kaddish that follows, those final few prayers, Ashrei, Lamnatzeach, Yavalatziyah, and Aleinu, Song of the Day, the mourner can at least lead those final prayers. So that could also be a benefit for the neshama. As he mentioned, there are many different customs in different places. I'm not sure exactly what Great Park custom is as far as different people leading the davening in different places. That would be a question for Rabbi Chazdan. But perhaps that would be an option. Okay. And since we spent we would have spent the last 13 halachas dealing with the order of priority. So he says whatever priority was given to saying Kaddish would also be given to who is able to lead the services. And that obviously would be relevant. So those last 16 halachas, 15, 16 halachas, or in total 16, 17 halachas are actually all relevant today to know who would get priority as chazan. Okay, it's customary that a mourner does not lead the service on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So it's quite interesting. We're generally learning the laws of how a Jew needs to act, how to live as a Jew. When it comes to this section 26 regarding the mourner's Kaddish, most of it is based on custom. It's not so much based on law, but more based on custom. So you'll see generally the term that's being used is custom as opposed to law. We won't be speaking about a mitzvah because there's no mitzvah per se. It's not one of the 613 commandments in any way to say Kaddish. Rather, it is a special thing that helps the neshama. So we'll constantly be referring to the custom. And he says it's customary for the mourner not to lead the services on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Because Shabbos and Yom Tov is a time that we should be in a state of joy. And since this person is generally leading the services because of the tragedy that he has experienced, so we don't want that to dampen our joy of the Shabbos. However, if this individual was accustomed to leading the services on Shabbos and Yom Tov, even before he became a mourner, then he would be able to lead the Shabbos services on now that he is a mourner as well, because then it won't be looked at, it won't be like, oh, 1 second, is he leading the prayers because he's mourning? It won't be that. Rather, it will be that, no, he is the chazan. And so he always has that. So somebody whose job is a chazan can certainly continue to be chazan on Shabbos, Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, because the only concern over here is about dampening the joys, but if that has been his job from beforehand, then we're not concerned about that. Then he goes back to the order of precedence again over the next few halachas. We'll leave that. Okay. It is customary to say Kaddish for no more than 11 months. Why? In order not to make the parents appear as grave sinners. Why? Because the worst of sinners are sentenced to a period of 12 months of Gehenna, of hell. So since out of respect for our parents, we're certain that they are not going to spend the full 12 months, and therefore we stop at 11 months to say by now they're definitely out of Gehenna, they're out of hell, and are no longer in need of the special merit of Kaddish. And then he goes through the calculations of how exactly you calculate those 11 months. You can look at it inside, because in the context of this shir, it'll be a little complicated. If there are many mourners, may Hashem save us from that, that in order to avoid any arguments or fights, it is customary in many communities for 2 or 3 mourners to say Kaddish together. So I guess that's where the source of the practice today. We don't want to cause any machlokes. Why are you saying Kaddish and not me? So we say, let everybody say Kaddish. There's no harm in that. If there's no one in the synagogue that's mourning the loss of a father or a mother, then the mourner's Kaddish should still be recited by somebody who has neither a mother or father, meaning he's not a mourner, meaning that his parents passed away more than a year ago, but that way this Kaddish will still be said on behalf of all the departed in Israel. It is in some communities, it is the custom for relatives to say the Kaddish for members of their family. Until now, we've just been speaking about parents, but we're saying it could be relatives as well. If there are no mourners for fathers or mothers, so that could be a brother, or it could be a grandchild. Even when there are mourners for mothers or fathers, if someone wishes to say the Kaddish for a grandfather or a grandmother who died without leaving any sons, or for his son or daughter who died without leaving any sons, the other mourners should allow him to say one Kaddish. Again, it's going back to the order of priority. And again, we follow the prevailing custom, provided the custom is firmly established in the community, meaning as long as it's a real custom. And it's just, we'll try to quickly finish it off. I see it's 5:20. If you need to go, then you are excused. But let's try to finish off the chapter. A daughter should not say Kaddish at the synagogue. It's not really, for whatever reasons, that's a whole shir in its own right. That women don't lead services or lead davening or take on a public role within the context of shul. So the same would apply for Kaddish, that a daughter wouldn't say Kaddish in shul. However, some authorities are of the opinion that a minyan assembled in her house to enable her to say Kaddish, she would be able to do it in that more private context. Others hold that even this is not permitted. So that is a common issue. Some Rabbanim, I think, take the position just not to let it go. But if she's asking, then the general custom is not for women to say Kaddish. If a person was unable to say Kaddish on the yard side because he was traveling, he would be able to say Kaddish on the following night. That could be quite relevant. And 22, we will do tomorrow. Thank you for joining us and wishing you a wonderful evening.
Thank you.